Hi guys, this week's episode, we want to issue a warning before you listen to it. We always like to issue warnings on History of a Haunting when we cover a story that has a potentially wide-reaching demonic possession component to it. So if you believe in that, then please send up any kind of prayers of light protection as you listen to this episode. The story that we are going to cover today does allude to some demonic activity that is activated when you discuss it. So consider yourselves forewarned. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you? Welcome to History of a Haunting, everybody.
Right? I hope everybody's excited after that fun warning. Now you know what you're in for.
Right now, you know what you're in for. As everybody knows, I am very, very uncomfortable with demonic possession stories. And especially ones that, like I said in the warning, can potentially be activated and kind of, have their ears pricked up when you discuss them via any sort of communication source, such as YouTube or a podcast. So if you have not yet, I already have. I did earlier when I was reading, Laura wrote the script today, and so earlier when I read it, I did pray to St. Michael to, guard Laura and I and all of our living, beautiful souls in each of our homes as we, shields of light protection. Yep. As we talk about this story to protect us. So I encourage all of you to do that. If you have not done that yet, please do so. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Laura.
Yay. Hi, Laura.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. Let's just jump right into the EVPs. We think it's going to be a long episode just because the script is long, but it may not be, but it may be. Just grab a glass of wine and settle in. So let's go ahead and jump right into our EVPs. The only one that I have, Laura, for this week is, as always, the one, the only, Spirit Realm Network. This is actually going to be airing yesterday. But this episode
so hopefully you watched it.
Hopefully you watched it, and if you did, let us know. But for the Patreons, this is actually going to be airing on Friday, February 25th, with Rick McCallum and Dylan Rathman doing a private overnight investigation of the 1910 jail in Globe, Arizona. You can visit them. We're hoping that they will be replaying it on thespiritrealm.net. And so that, those of us who were unable to watch it live can watch the recap or the re-airing, if you will, of it. And we're very excited for it. And that's all I have. Spirit Realm Network. Dylan Rathman is my mentors, Tony and Cherie Rathman. He is their son. He's a very up and coming paranormal investigator. So I'm excited to see, the dynamic between him and Rick, who is a established and decades-long paranormal investigator. So it's going to be a good time. And of course, the 1910 Jail and Globe is really fucking amazing, and we love it. Is somebody stealing a car in your neighborhood, Laura? Because we did hear the alarm.
I heard it too, which is funny because, I live in a gated neighborhood, like kind of away from everything. So
so nothing bad ever happens in a gated community?
No, I'm just saying, like, there's fucking nothing out here. Nobody comes out here. So it's pretty quiet. So I'm sure somebody accidentally clicked their button or something. Like the only thing out here, like javelina and coyotes. That's it.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to steal a car.
Maybe they're like, I'm
Maybe.
fucking out of here,
Out of here. Bye-bye.
Roadrunner style.
Sick of you guys running us over. We're going to start running you over.
Yeah. If the car says Acme on the side,
Then run.
wait a minute, I have a Roadrunner in the garage.
Oh my God, that's right. I
They're trying
forgot
to steal
about
my
that.
car.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's all I've got. When you guys are listening to this, the majority of you, I am in DC and we are at the International Spy Museum. So, I'll try to do some TikToks. I'll try to do some Facebook Lives if they let me. I don't know if they will. But that's where I'm going to be. Where will you be when this episode drops, Laura?
Probably rugby.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Zane has rugby. His
Zane has
last. They're playing for the championship this weekend, I guess. And
Stop it.
Yeah, and then he has his rugby party, like the next day for the end of the season. So
Yeah.
I will. It's rugby all weekend.
Yay, yay. We actually are also going to be recording a very big episode for History of a Haunting. We have a very special guest host that's joining us. We're recording it this Sunday. And Laura, my baby girl, she has a big part. We are going to be covering the Oman House. And for those of you who are familiar with David Oman and his home, you already know it's coming and the mountain of work that Laura has on the history. For those of you that don't, David Oman built his home 150 feet away from the site of the Sharon Tate murders. So he is going to be taking over for me. I will still be in the episode, but he's going to do my part and talk about the hauntings of his house as a result of the Sharon Tate murders. And Laura is going to blend her love of true crime and her budding love of paranormal and write the history and talk about the murders. And then David is going to talk about all of the hauntings and the crazy batshit stuff that goes on in his house.
I can only imagine.
It's insane. And he's lived there for 20 years. I talked to him last week. We had a lovely conversation and he was like, I've been here for almost 20 years now. And I was thinking, Jesus, oh my God, like I can't imagine what life could possibly be like living in that home. So that episode is going to drop in the month of March. We will announce it as soon as we know what date that's going to drop. That is entirely dependent on me and my editing prowess. So, but yeah, so that's another thing that we have going on this weekend as you're listening to this episode. We certainly hope that you will tune in because it is, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty wild. So, yeah, we got rugby. Yeah. We got Spy Museum. We got David Oman House. We got Sharon Tate murders. We have a lot going on this weekend. So
we do. And then in a week, I leave on my trip. So I'm just starting to get packed and trying to practice my hiking. I'm scared.
Why do you need to practice hiking, Laura? Where are you going? Tell us.
I'm going to summit a volcano in Guatemala, outside Antigua. And
a live volcano?
Overnight. Huh?
A live volcano?
No, the one live is next to it, and you can kind of overlook and see the lava at night, so that's why it's so cool. But it is supposed to be just a bastard of a hike, so...
Yeah.
Get my chest in shape before I try to do a 4.5-hour hike or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The volcano, which is actually higher than Mount Fuji, I found out. Yay!
Oh,
Laura,
good.
choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that I was going to go on this trip with Laura and Angelique, and I didn't because I just had found a brand new job, and at the time the tickets needed to be booked and things like that. I hadn't had a job yet. By extension, I didn't have life insurance, so I was a little concerned about hiking a volcano right next to a live volcano. And yeah. So, real sorry I can't make this one. I'm not really sorry.
Yeah, I'll give you. I'll do live updates as we go.
Yeah,
For
please
sure.
do. Please do.
All
So,
right.
anyway,
Ready to jump in?
ready to jump in. I have no overlays. I have no sources. So you're just going to have to take it away because
All right.
I've had a week.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Today's episode is the Demon House located in Gary, Indiana. My sources for today are wikipedia.org, indiestar.com, an article by Marissa Kwiatkowski, theskepticalinquirer.org, the documentary Demon House by Zak Bagans, cdc.gov, and denofgeek.com, and it was an article by Tony Sokol.
All right. I love this one. I think this is a fascinating story. Everybody, devoted listeners of the podcast know how I feel about Zak Bagans, but I watched the documentary today and I'll give my opinions on it later, but Zak Bagans kind of ratcheted up in my opinion with this one, guys. I gotta be honest. He did.
Yeah, I would recommend the documentary. It's pretty good.
1,000%. All right, let's do it. Ugh.
All right.
How do you do that cross thing? Up, down, left, right? Okay.
Forehead. I forget what the boys used to say. Forehead, like chest, wallet, watch or something. I don't remember. Something like that.
All right.
Anyway.
If you got something prayed to St.
Michael
Michael for protection now, it's too late. Go.
All right. So in November of 2011, Latoya Amons and her mother, Rosa Campbell, and her 3 children, then ages 7, 9, and 12, moved into a house located at 3860 Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. Days after the family moved in, they claimed black flies swarmed the porch in December and kept returning even after the family believed they had killed them.
I can't stand flies, and there's a lot of them here in North Carolina. I was really excited for winter because the flies would go away, so I can't imagine the disgust and horror of this family.
Right. It's gross.
Swarms of them. Nope. No.
So there were other strange happenings too. After midnight, Campbell and Amons both said they occasionally heard the steady clump of footsteps climbing the basement stairs and the creak of the door opening between the basement and the kitchen, but no one was there.
Gross.
Even after they locked the door, the noise continued.
Nope.
Campbell said she awoke one night and saw a shadowy figure of a man pacing her living room.
No.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, no, God, no.
Right? She leapt out of bed to investigate and found large, wet boot prints. On March 10th, 2012, Campbell said the family's unease turned to fear. It was about 2 a.m. Normally, the family would have been asleep, but they were mourning the death of a loved one with a group of friends. Eamon suddenly heard her daughter scream, "Mama, Mama," which startled everybody. So they ran into her bedroom where her then 12-year-old granddaughter and a friend were staying. So there's a friend there too, right? In the bedroom.
Okay.
So somebody's staying over.
Sure.
So Amons and Campbell said the 12-year-old was levitating above the bed, unconscious. So according to their account of events, Amon and several others surrounded the girl praying. Campbell said she remembers being terrified. Eventually, Campbell said her granddaughter descended onto the bed and the girl woke up with no memory of what happened.
I think if that something like that were to happen to me and my family, we are very spiritual. We are very religious. We believe in God. Most of us were raised in the Baptist church. But I don't know, in that situation, in that moment, I would have the forethought to start praying.
Right.
I
agree, but I think it depends on how entwined you are in your religion.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, when something happens, that's their first instinct is to pray. So.
Yes. I think my first instinct would be to pull Coy down out of the air.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
That would be my first thing too.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would just start. Yeah.
There's so much in this story that warrants a discussion as to how you would handle the situation.
I agree.
If it were you. Yeah.
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 So the family said that people who were visiting that night refused to come back to the house. After this event, they started calling around to local churches, but most refused to listen.
Huh, thank you.
Eventually, after listening to Campbell and Amon's talk about the house and visiting it, officials at one church told them the Carolina Street house had spirits in it. They recommended the family clean the home with bleach and ammonia, then
Ugh.
use oil to draw crosses on every door and window. At the church's suggestion, Amon said she poured olive oil on her 3 children's hands and feet, then smeared oil in the shape of crosses on their foreheads.
Why
They
olive
also,
oil? Did we find out why
I
olive oil?
don't know.
Does does the extra virgin work better?
Right. I'm sure it does.
Okay. Okay,
More
good.
holy. They also reached out to 2 clairvoyants who said the family's home was besieged by more than 200 demons. Their
That's far too
explanation-
many demons.
That is 200 too many.
That is 200 too many demons. That's far too many.
So their explanation made sense to the family because it meshed with their Christian faith. The best thing you can do is move, Amon's remembered the clairvoyants telling her, but moving wasn't an option for the Castrop family. Instead, Amon said she took a clairvoyant's advice and made an altar in the basement. Also, on a clairvoyant's advice, they burned sage and sulfur throughout the home, starting upstairs and working their way down. The smoke was so thick they could hardly breathe.
Sulfur, really?
I guess. And she said she also drew like a cross with the smoke.
Okay.
The person she was with,
typical.
read Psalm 91 aloud as they moved through the house. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. Amon said nothing odd happened for 3 days after that, but then things got worse.
Cool.
Right. That's kind of what happens. Otherwise,
otherwise it's a boring story. And that was it. Thank you for listening. And
So the family said demons possessed Amon's and her children, then ages 7, 9, and 12. The kids' eyes bulged, evil smiles crossed their faces, and their voices deepened every time it happened.
gross.
Campbell said the demons didn't affect her because she was born with protection from evil. She said she and others like her have a guardian who protects them. So Amon said she felt weak, lightheaded, and warm when she was possessed. Her body shook, and she said she felt out of control.
I'm sorry. I have to ask. Okay, so the mother is like, it didn't bother me because I was born with protection.
No, the
What
grandmother. That's a grandmother.
Right.
The grandma's like, no.
The mother, but then her daughter gets possessed and her grandkids.
Right.
So why isn't she like, why didn't...
Where's her guardian with the phone?
Right, like why wasn't her daughter and her grandchildren born with protection? Like it
I know. It's a weird statement. Anyway.
it's a weird statement. Yeah, okay.
Right.
That's a good way to put it. It's a weird statement and we're just going to let it rest for now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Eamon said, you can tell it's different, something supernatural. So the youngest boy, then 7, sat in a closet talking to a boy that no one else could see. The other boy was describing what it felt like to be killed. So the grandma said that the 7-year-old once flew out of the bathroom as if he'd been thrown, and a headboard once smacked into Amon's daughter, causing a wound that needed stitches. Yeah, so the 12-year-old would later tell mental health professionals that she sometimes felt as if she were being choked and held down so she couldn't speak or move. She said she heard a voice say that she'd never see her family again and wouldn't live another 20 minutes. Some nights were so bad the family slept at a hotel. So finally, in desperation, they went to their family physician, Dr. Jeffrey Onyoku, and I'm probably killing that, and I apologize, on April 19th, 2012.
Dr. O.
Dr. O.
Dr. Jeffrey. It's fine.
Right. Amon said she told him that what they were going through, hoping he might understand. Now, he said it was bizarre. 20 years, and I've never heard anything like that in my life, he said. I was scared myself when I walked into the room. So in his medical notes about the visit, he wrote delusions of ghost in home and hallucinations. He also wrote History of Ghosts at Home and Delusional.
Those seem like very contradictory notes. Delusions of Ghosts at Home, hallucination, and then History of Ghosts at Home, delusional. So that all right.
Yeah. So what they say happened next also was detailed in a DCS report of a family case manager's interviews with medical staff.
So that's Department of Child Services. So by this point, they've gotten basically CPS involved because of the kids, right? Okay.
So, yeah. So what happened at the doctor's office is chaos erupted. Campbell said Eamon's son cursed the doctor in demonic voices, raging at him. Medical staff saw the youngest boy was lifted and thrown into the wall with nobody touching him, according to the DCS report.
Medical staff said this.
Right.
And DCS included it in their...
Correct. Put it in the report.
Okay.
So the boys abruptly passed out and wouldn't come to. So the grandmother and the mother held one of the boys in their arms each.
Okay.
So someone at the doctor's office called 911 during this.
Oh, God.
And the doctor said 7 or 8 police officers and multiple ambulances showed up. Everybody was, according to him, this is a quote, they couldn't figure out exactly what was happening, he recalled.
Okay.
Police and emergency personnel took the boys to Methodist Hospital's campus in Gary. Eamon's, the mother, said hospital personnel laughed at her desire to anoint her sons in olive oil. Which, okay, that makes sense. I would. She said, I couldn't talk to them, so I talked to God. The boys woke up in the hospital. The older boy, then 9, acted rationally, but the youngest screamed and thrashed. They said it took 5 men to hold him down. He's 9. He couldn't be very big, right?
No, like I'm picturing Zane.
Mm-hmm. And Zane's really big for his age, so...
Right,
yeah.
So...
Like
but even still,
maybe?
still, requiring 5 men to hold him down, that's
a lot.
Significant, yeah.
Uh-huh. So meanwhile, someone called DCS and asked the agency to investigate Eamon's for possible child abuse or neglect. The caller, who was not named in the DCS report, speculated that Eamon's might have a mental illness. The person believed the children were performing for her, and she was encouraging their behavior. So DCS family case manager Valerie Washington was asked to handle the initial investigation. She gave the following account to police and in her intake officer's report. She said hospital personnel examined Eamon's and her children and found them to be healthy and free of marks or bruises. A hospital psychiatrist, Jesus Christ, evaluated Eamon's... Sorry, I'm like, no words.
Aaron is absolutely going to message us about that.
I'm sure.
Sorry, go on.
So, a hospital psychiatrist evaluated Eamon's and determined she was of sound mind. So, Washington, who's the caseworker, interviewed the family in the hospital. While she spoke with Eamon's, the 7-year-old boy started growling with his teeth showing and his eyes rolled back in his head.
Ugh.
The boy locked his hands around his older brother's throat and refused to let go until adults pried his hands open.
Mm-mm.
Later that evening, Washington and registered nurse Willie Lee Walker brought the 2 boys into a small exam room for an interview. Campbell, who's a grandmother, joined them.
Right.
The 7-year-old stared into his brother's eyes and began to growl again. It's time to die, the boy said in a deep, unnatural voice. I will kill you.
To his brother?
The youngest, I think it just in general to everybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I think maybe to the adults.
Ew.
While the youngest boy spoke, the older brother started headbutting his grandmother in the stomach. So she grabbed her grandson's hands and started praying. What happened next would rattle the witnesses, and to some it would offer not only evidence, but proof of paranormal activity. According to Washington's original DCS report.
And this is the social worker for child services.
Yeah,
okay.
so this is like in her report.
Okay.
And this is an account that was corroborated by Walker, the nurse.
Okay.
So the 9-year-old had a weird grin and walked backward up a wall to the ceiling. He then flipped over his grandmother, landing on his feet, and he never let go of her hand. So he walked up backwards, got to the ceiling, and then flipped over. So he walked up the wall, flipped over her, and stood there, Walker said. There's no way he could have done that. Later, police asked Washington whether the boy had run up the wall as though performing an acrobatic trick, and she said no. She said the boy glided backward on the floor, wall, and ceiling, according to a police report.
I would imagine it would take a tremendous amount of skill. Like, I'm looking at my walls right now. It would take a tremendous amount of skill to even just run up the wall, and you wouldn't get very far, I don't imagine.
So here's like a skeptical theory on it, and I think I might mention it also later. Okay. Was that the grandmother's holding his hands, so he's pushing off of her, and she's holding him, and he's walking up the wall and then flips over. Okay. So that's what the skeptics said about that because she was holding his hands, like he was basically at what
his arm strength and her arm strength was keeping. Yeah, I saw that in the Zak Bagans documentary, like that, and I was like, well, if he's holding her hand, like the woman, the child was walking backward up the wall.
That's pretty tough.
That's a tough one. That is a tough one. That's a tough one. Okay.
So according to the Zak Bagans documentary Demon House, she still sticks to the story and believes it was something supernatural.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of talk more about her later.
Yeah.
But she told police she was scared when it happened and ran out of the room. And as for the nurse, he ran out of the room with me. They just fucking took off.
We're going to go confer. Bye.
Uh-huh.
Out the door.
They said we didn't know what was going on. Walker said that was crazy. I was like, everybody gotta go. So according to Washington's report, they told a doctor what happened. The doctor, who did not believe them, asked the boy to walk up the wall again. Walker said she told the doctor he doubted that he could repeat the feat. And she said the kid was not himself when he did that.
Yeah.
And the boy said he didn't remember what happened and couldn't do it. Yeah. So Walker, who said he previously believed in demons and spirits, thought the boy's behavior had some demonic spirit to it, but also might have been the result of his mental illness. A police report quoted Washington saying she believed there could be an evil influence affecting the family. So Eamon said she spent the night at the hospital with her 7-year-old son, while Campbell took Eamon's daughter and older son to a relative's home in Gary.
Maybe it's just Gary.
Right?
Sorry, Gary, Indiana, but maybe you guys are kind of hella fucked.
That's not untrue. It was at one point the murder capital of the United States.
The United States, yeah. I did see that.
Yeah, it's heavy crime, not awesome, bad economic, situation.
Yeah. So maybe just the whole entire town is not the best.
It's not going so good.
No.
So the next day was Eamon's youngest son's 8th birthday. Eamon said DCS officials asked Campbell to bring the older children back to the hospital, presumably to talk more about what happened. The family celebrated the boy's birthday by singing and eating a miniature cake. Then Eamon said Washington told them the children wouldn't be going home. DCS took the emergency step of taking custody of the children without a court order. All of the children were experiencing spiritual and emotional distress, Washington wrote. Eamon said she and her children cried because they didn't want to be separated. She said, we'd already been through so much and fought so hard for our lives. It was obvious we were a team and we were beating it, whatever we were fighting. We made it through together as a team and they separated us.
Yeah, I don't love that at all. And this isn't the first time that you and I have covered a story where a single mother is experiencing paranormal activity, or what they believe to be paranormal activity, and she tries to reach out for help, and somebody calls the police or Child Protective Services, and they get involved in what could only make a really horrible situation even worse. even though it was probably the best thing for the children,
Well,
this is one of the things about this particular case that trips me up in my
it's super
analyzation of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like anytime children are taken away from their parents, it's traumatic for them.
It's
So
traumatic.
especially by force, especially with all this shit going on. I mean, you're right. It was probably the best thing for them to get them out of the situation, but
Right. But what
it's still
parent
terrible.
is, I mean, and I'm sure that there are, and we'll talk about this more in the end, but what parent is so mentally ill that they would carry on such a thing and have their children taken away? And I mean, I'm sure that they're probably, I don't know, this one's got a lot of theories, guys. A lot. There's a lot to unpack.
There really is.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, the Reverend Michael Magano was leading Bible study in his living room the morning of April 20th, 2012, when he received a call from a hospital chaplain. Magano had been the priest at St. Stephen Martyr Parish in Merrillville for more than 10 years, but had never received a request like this one. The chaplain asked him to perform an exorcism on Eamon's 9-year-old son. Magano agreed to interview the family after Sunday Mass a few days later.
He's like, I'll just talk to them. I'm not going to you exorcism. Let me just have a conversation first. See what I think.
So the first step Magano said was ruling out natural causes for what Eamon's and her family said they were experiencing. He visited the family in the Carolina Street home April 22nd, 2012.
Why is it going to be Carolina Street? Jesus.
Yeah. For 2 hours, Eamons and Campbell detailed the phenomena for him. Then Campbell interrupted the interview to point out a flickering bathroom light. The flickering stopped each time Magano walked over to investigate, which he attributed to a demonic presence. It must be scared of me, he said that he thought later. The interview was interrupted again when Campbell pointed out Venetian blinds in the kitchen swinging even though there was no air current. Magano said he also saw wet footprints throughout the living room.
I'm fucking hella creeped. I'm sorry. The minute you said that, I was like, let me check out my own Venetian blinds.
You're like, nothing's happening, right?
I don't love it. Thank you, Michael. Nothing's happening.
All right. Eamons complained about having a headache. Magano said she convulsed when he placed a crucifix against her head. After a 4-hour interview, Magano said he was convinced the family was being tormented by demons. He said he also believed there were ghosts in the house. So Magano blessed the house before he left, praying, reading from the Bible, and sprinkling holy water in each room.
I'd be dumping it by the fucking bucketfuls.
Right? I would just be in the bathtub in fucking holy water.
Right. Just shower me in it. Come on.
He told Eamons and Campbell to leave because it wasn't safe. So they temporarily moved in with a relative. Okay. But less than a week later, the two women were back on the Carolina Street house to let Washington, the DCS family case manager, check the condition of the home. So Washington had asked a Lake County police officer to come with her. And 2 other officers, one each from Gary and the Hampton Police Departments, asked to join them out of, quote, professional curiosity, unquote. So
last time they did that,
like, what the hell, right?
Last time they did that
for themselves, right? So Eamons refused to go inside, but Campbell agreed to accompany the group, and her kids were still in DCS custody. So the main floor of the house had 3 bedrooms, a living room, 1 bathroom, hardwood floors, and a small open-style kitchen. And there was a door in the kitchen that led to a basement with concrete floors. Directly under the stairs was a dirt floor, and the concrete around it was jagged, like it had been broken.
Okay.
So the makeshift altar Eamons had created was still in place.
Oh, that's right. She put it in the basement.
That's right. Because that's where they thought everything was kind of coming from. Along with rings of salt she had poured against the basement walls to dissuade the demons, according to a Hammond Police Department report. Now, I believe this is the visit that you can see that they kind of recorded a bunch, and you can actually watch them go through the house.
In the Demon
In the
House,
video.
in the documentary, or
I think it's in the documentary.
it's all over
It might
YouTube
also
too.
just be
Yeah, probably.
like on YouTube or something.
YouTube. Okay.
I watched like a bunch of stuff, so it kind of gets blurred together.
Right.
Campbell told officers that demons seemed to emanate from beneath the stairs. So Austin, the Gary police captain, was one of those officers.
Yeah.
He later stated he did believe in ghosts and the supernatural, but said he didn't believe in demons. Austin
Stop right there. How?
How?
How do you believe in ghosts and the supernatural, but you don't believe in demons? I feel like if you believe in God, then you must believe in Satan. And if you believe in angels, you must believe in demons. Like,
I don't think that's true, because a lot of religions, they have, well, like, they don't have hell.
Judaism doesn't have hell, correct?
Right.
Okay. But they have a Dybbuk. Where is that coming from?
I mean, I'm just...
Wow. Huh. I got lots of questions. We might have to be taking some deep dives into this podcast. But anyway, that's my take on it. I believe in ghosts and the supernatural, but not in demons. I think that's a critical error, personally.
Well, he said he changed his mind after he visited the house. So
Aha!
there you go.
Okay. All right.
So during the interview with Campbell, one of the officers' audio recorders malfunctioned, according to the police records. The power light flashed to indicate the batteries were dying, even though the officer had placed fresh batteries in the recorder earlier that day. Another officer recorded audio, and when he played it back later, heard an unknown voice whisper, "Hey." According to Lake County police records.
I've heard that.
Did you hear it? Yeah, I can hear it.
I heard that, yeah.
That officer also took photos of the house. In one photo of the basement stairs, there was a cloudy white image in the upper right-hand corner. When an officer enlarged the photo, that cloud appeared to resemble a face.
Ew.
The enlargement also revealed a second green image that police say looked like a female.
Okay.
Austin said photos he snapped with his iPhone also seemed to have strange silhouettes in them. The radio in his police-issued Ford malfunctioned on the way home.
I mean, it's a Ford.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Later, Austin said the garage at his Gary home refused to open, even though the power was on everywhere else. Austin also said, this is the police guy, the captain guy.
Right.
That the driver's seat in his personal 2005 Infiniti also started moving backwards and forward on its own.
That'd be creepy and scary as fuck if you're driving.
Yeah. And he said he took the car to a dealership, and the mechanic told him the motor on the driver's seat was broken, which the mechanic said could have caused a distraction leading to an accident. Now, again,
1000%.
You're kind of relating all these things to to going to the demon house, which doesn't necessarily.
I mean, it could have just been a confluence. Yeah, a confluence
of the cause and effect is not
exactly.
It's up
not
to you to
quite established.
Right.
Yet. Yeah. To that end, we're going to take a really quick break. We will be right back with my portion. And to you guys, that's going to be in the blink of an eye. We'll be right back.
That went fast, right?
Okay, so my part. I'm going to bring it on home with the worst of the story. As I love to do. So
everybody has their talents, Carrie, and that's your talent.
That's my talent, talking about really awful shit. So the police captain, you said, Austin? Mm-hmm. He's a captain, right? Okay.
He's a captain.
He said that he found himself starting to believe her claims of paranormal activity. But the mental health professionals evaluating Ammons and her children remained skeptical. And that's kind of the crux of it, right? You know, there's the legal aspect of it that's trying to remain logical and in the best interest of the children. And then there's the family. that's experiencing everything that's going on. It's a very unique dynamic. Which makes this story even more difficult and somewhat treacherous to navigate when you're telling it like we are.
Well, and plus this is present day. So most of these stories we're talking,
Yeah.
they're older, right? So, and this stuff happened in front of DCS people, medical professionals, police officers. So
Yeah.
they're, in one way, it gives them a lot more credibility. But again, because it is present day, I mean, you're dealing with DCS and the police, and
Yeah.
people are calling 911, and
Yeah.
because this shit is fucking weird and crazy shit is happening. So of course, like,
Yeah.
they're gonna get people involved.
Yeah, and it's really difficult to listen to the entire story and figure out, especially for me, to figure out which side you land on. But let's see what the end of the story becomes. So in April 2012, DCS petitioned Lake Juvenile Court for temporary wardship of the 3 children, and the request was granted. So LaToya lost her children because of this. When we covered the San Pedro haunting, she too had Child Protective Services come and investigate her. So it becomes a situation where you're going through the most unbelievable experiences, even to yourself. And then you ask for help, and this is what you get. You're accused of child abuse. You're accused of any number of things. And the reason that DCS got involved with her case and had actually investigated her before was because her children were missing an exorbitant amount of school. But they were because they were becoming sick by the ongoings in the house. So it's like, what do you do as a parent? Like, you and I are both single mothers. What do you do as a parent in that situation? It's a very provocative conversation, and we will certainly delve into all of that in a sec. So DCS found that Ammons had neglected her children's education by not having them in school regularly, like I just said. The agency made the same finding in 2009, according to its records. So Ammons told Washington, who was the social worker assigned to her case, there were times she could not send the kids to school because, quote, the spirits would make them sick, or they would be up all night without sleep. So DCS temporarily placed her daughter and older son at St. Joseph's Carmelite home in East Chicago. Ammons' youngest son was sent to Christian Haven in Wheatfield for a psychiatric evaluation. Think about how scary that had to have been for a 7, 9, and 8-year-old. That had to be terrifying. Clinical psychologist Stacy Wright, who had evaluated Ammons' youngest son, said that the boy acted possessed when he was challenged, but redirected or asked questions that he didn't want to answer. In her evaluation, she wrote that he seemed coherent and logical, except when he talked about the demons. So that brings a little bit of question into another aspect of this story and what's happening to these children. So it was then that the 8-year-old's stories became, quote, bizarre, fragmented, and illogical. It appeared that his stories changed each time that he told them. He also changed the subject, and he would start to quiz Wright on math problems and asking her about outer space. So he would sort of deflect. He would ask, can you die if you go to space? How do you get to space? Do you have to wear a helmet and a suit? So,
I mean, as a mother of an 8-year-old, like, they do that.
These are legit questions. Yeah.
These are legit things that all of a sudden you'll just get random questions like that. I think that to me sounds like any normal 8-year-old boy.
Right, yeah.
Just like
me too.
random stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Coy certainly did when we would be working on homework, or be it math or reading or, spelling. He would veer off into a completely different train of thought because he didn't want to focus on the task at hand. So that doesn't necessarily mean a lying child. It just means a typical 8-year-old child.
Right.
In my
Limited
mind.
attention. They're going to get bored. This is not exciting to them to be questioned forever.
Right, exactly.
So now they want to talk about space.
Yeah, right. Yeah, me too.
So it's normal.
Frankly. So Wright believed that the 8-year-old did not suffer from a true psychotic disorder. Quote, "This appears to be an unfortunate and sad case of a child who has been induced into a delusional system perpetuated by his mother and potentially reinforced by other relatives." This is what she wrote in her psychological evaluation, which, as a mother and being able to empathize with this mother, I would be crushed to think that somebody that has enough power to take my children away from me thinks this of me. I think I would be utterly crushed, especially if this is the situation that I was living in with my kids. So, clinical psychologist Joel Schwartz, who evaluated Eamon's daughter and older son, came to a similar conclusion. He said, quote, "There appears to be a need to assess the extent to which her daughter may have been unduly influenced by her mother's concerns that the family was exposed to paranormal experiences." So Eamon's daughter told this gentleman that she saw shadowy figures in the Carolina Street home. She also said she twice went into trances. Eamon's older son told Schwartz that, quote, "doors would slam and stuff started moving around." Eamon's was also examined several times by psychologists who said she was, quote, "guarded," but did not seem to be, quote, "experiencing symptoms of psychosis or thought disorder." One psychologist recommended Eamon's be assessed to, quote, "determine whether her religiosity," did I say that right?
Right.
Oh, yay! "may be masking." So then I choke on masking.
Right.
To determine whether her religiosity may be masking underlying delusional ideations or perceptual disturbances. Fuck you for putting that in my part. But I got it right.
You did it.
I did it. Eamon's and all three kids continued to insist they were possessed by demons. So DCS set goals for the family. One of them stipulated that the children, quote, "not discuss demons and being possessed and take responsibility for their actions." They also needed to participate in therapy to address past behaviors. So while the DCS officials credited Eamon's for sharing a close bond with her children, the agency also said she needed to use alternate forms of discipline not directly related to religion and demon possession. Who does that? I mean, I'm sure there are people that do that, but I feel like that... Did they find something in the way she would discipline the children
that's what
likened?
Okay, so I had the same question. Like, is she disciplining the kids, being like, "Go play with the demons"? Like, is that how they're getting in trouble? Like, you
Right. If you don't do this, the demons will come and get you. Like, is she putting a certain amount of religious ideology and the fear of Satan and hell and in the punishment she's giving to the kids? Because nothing that I'm familiar with this story. But nothing that I've read has said anything of the sort. Like,
right, and this is the only time that they talk about it, and I thought that was weird too. I'm like, well, what is she using for discipline then?
Right,
or maybe they just don't want them to talk about demons. I don't know. Fuck.
Yeah, right? Yeah, there's so I have so many questions. So, appropriate discipline included encouragement, rules, and withholding privileges, which you and I know that's kind of the go-to that pediatricians and behavioral therapists and things like that, that's what they're going to say. You need to be a little more strict with your rules, and you need to like reward good behavior and, you know, punish bad behavior in specific ways.
Right.
So they said that she could work on those goals during supervised visits with her children. So Amons also had to find a job and appropriate housing, quote, due to the paranormal activity at the house on Carolina Street. So in one hand, they're saying, hey, this is a bunch of bullshit and you need to quit talking about demons when you punish your kids. But at the same time, you can't live at this house where all the demons live. You need to find new housing. It's
You gotta love that.
Yeah, it's I failed to find a word for it. So, while Amons worked on meeting those objectives, police and DCS officials continued to investigate strange happenings at the house. But the group was a bit larger this time. So, Campbell, Amons, Captain Austin, and 2 other police officers from the initial visit went back to the Carolina Street home the afternoon of May 10th, 2012. Police officers visited after work hours. So that kind of goes back to your whole professional curiosity thing in your part.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they were joined by the priest Manigo, 2 Lake County officers with a police dog. Why you got to bring in the dog? Leave the dog out of it. And DCS family case manager Samantha Illick. So Illick, who was there in an official capacity, told the SAR that she volunteered to go in Washington's place because Washington, the woman who had seen the backward walking up the wall, and
The original case manager.
yeah, the original one, she didn't want to go back in the house. So she was there in her stead. So a county officer took his police dog around the home, but the dog didn't show any interest in any particular area, thank God. According to police records, everybody else then headed into the basement. So the new case manager, Illick, she touched some strange liquid she saw dripping in the basement. She said that it felt slippery and yet sticky between her fingers. So the priest, Manigo, told police that he wanted to check the dirt under the stairs for a pentagram or personal objects that might have been cursed. He said a pentagram might indicate a demonic presence and a possible portal to hell. Again, this was all in the Lake County Police report. So, he thought that maybe if somebody had died in the house and was buried under the stairs, it could explain paranormal activity, which you and I have covered enough locations to know that this is, you know, a logical conclusion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the police officers dug a 4-foot by 3-foot hole beneath the stairs, unearthing the following items: a pink press-on fingernail, a pair of women's white panties, a political shirt pin, a lid for a small cooking pan, socks with the bottoms cut off below the ankles. So I'm guessing the heels of the socks, maybe?
I guess, yeah.
They were children's socks. Candy wrappers, and a heavy metal object that looked like a weight for a drapery cord. Which sounds like kind of a mishmash of crap, honestly.
Right.
It just... But it's weird that why was it buried in a 4-foot hole underneath the basement stairs? All of this stuff.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird. Mm-hmm. So, finding nothing else, the officer replaced the dirt and raked over it. Oh, this looks perfectly normal. Let's just fix what we just messed up. So the priest, Manigo, blessed some salt, which he said is a barrier to evil. And if you watch Supernatural, you know that it is. And he spread it under the stairs and throughout the basement. So Illick, this social worker, says she was later standing in the living room with the rest of the group when her left pinky finger started to tingle and whiten. She complained that it felt broken. So my mom often has this happen to her, where the circulation in her fingers becomes compromised, if you will. So the fingers turn stark white. So kind of like what my fingers look like down here, but the whole finger, and it turns cold, which is a sign of poor circulation in the hand.
Right.
Which she does have nerve damage in her hand, so that accounts for that. This woman, however, it was in the fingers that she touched the oily substance with.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which was very weird. So, less than 10 minutes later, she said that she felt she was having a panic attack. She couldn't breathe, and so she walked outside to wait for the rest of the group. So, when the priest started questioning Amens inside the house, she complained of a headache and shoulder pain, and she joined Illich, this woman with the hand, outside. So Captain Austin said he left the house at nightfall. He, who has been shot and has investigated murders, rapes, and armed robberies during his more than 3 decades on the force, said he wasn't staying in the house past dark. Don't fucking blame him. The other officers continued to walk through the home. On the main floor, they noticed the same oil-like substance dripping from Venetian blinds in a bedroom, but they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. So, and all of this is in the police reports. So what they did was to make sure that Campbell or Amens hadn't poured oil onto the blinds. 2 of the officers actually wiped the blinds clean of this random oil. And it wasn't like coming from the top or the bottom. It was like smack dab in the middle. So they wiped it off. They wiped it off clean. What they then did was they sealed the room the blinds were in for 25 minutes. And then they stood nearby so nobody could walk in, so that like the daughter and her mom couldn't go in and be like, hey, we're faking it and we're going to pour some olive oil, which by the way is hella expensive, and don't pour it on your blinds. That's just not cheap. But what happened was nobody went in, nobody came out. When they went back into the room, the oil had reappeared, according to their records. The priest Manigault told police the liquid was a manifestation or a manifestation of a paranormal or demonic presence. So he wrote a report detailing his findings and asked Bishop Dale Mezek's permission to perform a full exorcism on Amens. He had previously performed a minor rite, which didn't require the backing of the Catholic Church. With this request, he actually was asking for the Catholic Church, the Church's permission, which would just make the exorcism all that much more powerful because it had the backing of the Church.
Right.
Yeah. So apparently this Bishop Dale Melzik had never authorized an exorcism in 21 years as the bishop of the Diocese of Gary, Indiana. So Debbie Bossack, who was the director of communications for the diocese, said she cannot comment on whether Melzik had ever approved an exorcism for confidentiality reasons. But in general, she said that such an action would require his approval, or any bishop's approval. Melzik initially denied Manigault's request to do a church-sanctioned exorcism, but the bishop told him to contact other priests who have performed exorcisms. Manigault said that he needed the other priests to give him the ritual for a minor exorcism, which, like I said, does not require church approval. The priest consulted him and told him to look it up on the internet.
Right, Google it, bitch.
Basically, Google it. How about you Google it? So what he did was an intense blessing on the home to expel the bad spirits. The same day, he performed a minor exorcism on Latoya Amens. The ritual consisted of prayers, statements, and appeals to cast out the demons. police officers and Illick, the DCS family case manager, attended the ritual. Can you imagine for just a tiny second, like a social worker being like, I gotta go to an exorcism. You're gonna need to clear my day.
Right? It like there's a lot of weird shit with how many people got involved in this, I think.
Yeah.
And to the extent that the
Yes.
police and the caseworkers were going to the house, going to the exorcism with the, you know, hanging out with the priest, like all these people were going together. So to me, I think it's kind of strange. Like they obviously wanted to see what was going on. Right. They thought something was weird and they wanted to see it. And
they couldn't explain it when they saw whatever it was they saw. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not even saying it was demons or even supernatural, but they knew something was fucking weird.
Weird. Yeah.
Fucking weird.
So the DCS case manager said that she left believing that something was going on, although she wouldn't go as far as saying it was demonic. She said she got chills during the nearly 2-hour rite. And in fairness, to listen to that for 2 hours, it would, even if you're an atheist, I think, or an agnostic, I feel like just to be in the presence of something like that for 2 hours, the ceremony alone, I feel like would move an individual. Whether they believe it or not, I feel like the ceremony alone would be beautiful and magnanimous enough to move an individual.
I agree. Yeah. There's a big power suggestion there.
There is. That's right. Yes. Mm-hmm. So she said, we felt like someone was in the room with you, someone breathing down your neck. She said she had a string of medical problems after visiting the home. And this is something that I do want to talk about after we finish the story, because there was a number of these medical coincidences.
Yes, there are.
With people that were a part of this home and attached to it in some way. So a week after she visited the house for the last time, she got third-degree burns from a motorcycle. Me too. I've had that happen. It's not the greatest. Within 30 days, she also broke 3 ribs jet skiing. Okay. I can see that. She also broke a hand when she hit a table, and then she broke an ankle running in flip-flops. That's kind of a lot of travesty and like clumsy trauma to happen to one individual.
But also, within 30 days. Slow down. Like, she's on a motorcycle. She's jet skiing. Like, she's running in flip-flops. Like, I mean, it's not like she was just sitting at home and she fell out of a chair. Like, she was doing some activities that do contain a decent amount of danger.
They do, yeah. But the odds of all of those...
not to run.
Don't run in flip-flops. My God.
For real.
I mean... so she said that I had friends who wouldn't talk to me because they believed that something had attached itself to me. Her joking response, I'm already evil. They try to find something that's not evil and corrupt it. They wouldn't waste their time on me. Girl, that's the way to believe. But yet, you got fucked up. After the minor ritual, Manago told Amons to look up the names of the demons that were tormenting her. Each demon has a name and a personality, Manago said. A name has power, the priest added, and he planned to use those names to fight the demons during the exorcisms. And guys, loyal listeners, everybody who has listened to all of our episodes, we talk about that ad nauseum in a lot of our episodes. Annalise Michelle, Roland Doe. We talk about that. They need the demon's name. That holds power over them to be able to expel them. So, this is no different. Eamon said that she and a friend looked up the demons' names online. Google it. This episode is brought to you by Google, is what I'm putting in the show notes. They looked up the demons' names online by searching for the demons that represented the problems that the family had been having. The computer kept shutting down. She said she felt sick and lightheaded. This wouldn't be the first complaint of sick and lightheaded of anybody in that building.
It happens all the time.
All the time. So, Eamon said that they actually found names that fit. One such name was Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies. She said they also found names of demons that torture and hurt kids, which she felt explained what happened in the Carolina Street house. She said other high-ranking demons were also assigned to her, including lieutenants and sergeants. After the minor rite, Manigault said that Bishop Melzik gave him permission to exorcise Amon's. The ritual is the same as the minor exorcism, but more powerful because it has the backing of the Catholic Church, which I could go all day long and burn sage and repeat cleansing rituals in my house, your house, anybody's home. But the fact that I'm an ordained minister just bolsters that power because I am ordained by the Church of God. I'm a reverend. So when I do it, it's more powerful than if, say, you were to do it. It's pretty fascinating. It's pretty fascinating. I'm powerful. I mean, you're such a queen.
I got the juice, man.
You do. Is it orange juice or what kind of juice are we talking?
It is.
Anyway, so that's just sort of an explanation of, like, once you have the power of the Church of God, then, you know, things are a little bit stronger. Meaning, I'm better than you.
Really, she just wants to gloat. Go on.
Really, I just want to gloat.
Reverend, continue.
Thank you. Reverends always wear these big hoop earrings, right? Like...
Reverend Around the Way Girl, can you please continue the story?
Okay, sorry. He ultimately performed 3 major exorcisms on Amon's. Around the Way Girl, Jesus. We're going to end it with this song. 2 in Latin he did, and 2 in English, and the last one in Latin in June 2012 at his church. During each, he praised God and condemned the devil. He pressed a crucifix to Amon's head as he spoke. I cast you out, unclean spirit, along with every satanic power of the enemy, every specter from hell, and all of your fell companions, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Who wasn't moved by me saying that and bumbling through that? It's because I'm an ordained minister. I'm sorry to make fun of that. God.
It's the hoops. Go on.
Sorry, God, please don't be mad at me. He said that his voice continued to get louder and more forceful until the demon weakened. He said he could tell how strong the demon was by how much Amon's convulsed. God, just foul all around. 2 police officers who had kept in touch with Manigault since the home investigation stood nearby in case Amon's needed to be restrained. Ammon said she prayed with Manigault until it became too painful. She said she felt as if something inside her was trying to hold on and inflict pain at the same time. She said it was different from a natural pain, but felt as intense as giving birth. Goodbye. No, thank you. She said, I was hurting all over from the inside out. I'm trying to do my best and be strong. Eventually, she fell asleep. She said that was the demon's way of lessening the ritual's effect. In between the second and third exorcisms, Manigault said that he went on a retreat. Okay, I'm just going to take a little vacation because this has been kind of a lot. A woman who assisted... What?
I just think it's funny. Like, yeah, I need a break.
I'm tired.
Right.
In between the second and third exorcisms, Manigault said that he went on a retreat. A woman who assisted him with some of the exorcisms helped set up a backup plan in case Amon's had problems while he was gone. So the woman wrote a long demon name. Manigault said he can't remember which one was on it. She wrote it on a piece of paper and tucked it into an envelope, then surrounded it with blessed salt. If Amon's had problems, the woman would burn the envelope. By this time, Amon's and her mother had moved to Indianapolis, but they drove back for the exorcisms and the court hearings as her children were still in DCS custody. Goddamn. like 6 months, I think.
Yeah, it's fucking long ass time.
Yeah. So Manigo, the priest, blessed the family's new home to prevent more problems. But Amos called while Manigo was on his retreat, complaining of bad dreams. So the woman burned the envelope, the woman assisting the priest. She saved the ashes to burn later in a church bonfire. After that, Amos said that her nightmares ended. So, in the final exorcism at the end of June 2012, Manigo said that he prayed and berated the demons in Latin rather than English. Police officers did not attend, so Manigo said his brother stood guard. Manigo said Amos convulsed while he condemned the demons, but did not convulse during prayer. When she fell asleep, he said words of thanksgiving. It would be the very last time that Amos saw Manigo. She and her mother drove back to Indianapolis, where they now live without fear. So her old home on Carolina Street became an object of local curiosity, so much so that the owner and landlord, Charles Reed, called the Gary Police Department to ask officers to stop driving by the house because it was scaring his new tenant. I bet that's what was scaring them. He said there were no problems in the home before or after Amos and her family lived there. I thought I heard it all, said Reed, who had been a landlord for 33 years. This one was new to me. My belief system has a hard time jumping over that bridge. And I love that sentence because it's so relatable. And I feel like that's a thought, that very sentence is the thought that's entered your mind in certain like stories that we tell on this podcast or locations that we investigate paranormally. I feel like that's what you think. My belief system has a hard time jumping over that bridge.
100%. It's very well put.
Yeah, it's very well put. I heard you in every word of that when I read it. When told of the Catholic Church's involvement in the situation, however, Reed said that made him less skeptical. Does it make you less skeptical about the story, Laura?
No.
Doesn't? Okay. So, fortunately, LaToya Amos regained custody of her 3 children in November 2012, about 6 months after they had been removed from her custody. They continued to check in on the children and make sure that they were going to school until the case was closed that following February 2013. Amos called her children's return the happiest day of her life. She said that they screamed and jumped up and down when she picked them up from the DCS office in Gary. It was just awesome, she said. I hadn't been that happy in God knows how long. So her children said that they felt safe after they left the house on Carolina Street, which I would too. I'm glad we're not talking about it anymore. For now. The 3 left their demonic voices and complaints behind them. No demonic presences or spirits in the home, DCS family case manager Christine Olegenik wrote in a team meeting note dated January 10th, 2013. She did not return calls from newspapers seeking a comment. She did say that the family is no longer fixated solely on religion to explain or cope with the children's behavioral issues. Her and her supervisor wrote that sentence in a request for dismissal of wardship dated January 24th, 2013. For her part, LaToya said that it was not the psychologist who resolved her problems, but God. When you hear something like this, she said, don't assume it's not real because I've lived it. I know that it's real. So, Zak Bagans, your friend and mine, the host and executive producer of the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures, bought the house sight unseen in 2014. And when he did, he created a documentary about the house and the people that he talked to and what led him to demolishing the house 2 years later. So everybody knows how I feel about Zak Bagans. I think, Laura, you're in a modicum of agreement with me on him. I'm sure he's a wonderful stand-up guy. I bet he's a really great son, but I don't like, subscribe to, or believe in his brand of investigating. That doesn't mean that he's not a good investigator. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have techniques or do things that produce compelling paranormal evidence. And this documentary, Laura, is really no different. And I wonder what you think, because you saw the documentary before I did.
Yes.
So, do you agree with what I just said?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like he did a good job investigating.
Yeah.
And he did cover bases to explain things outside of the realm of the paranormal.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. So there is scientific documentation about things that were happening in the house that are not paranormal.
Yeah.
So he did his homework.
He did his homework, and he also addressed the idea that he might be getting scammed in all of this.
100%.
Which I really thought was a fresh approach that he doesn't normally take, I don't think, on his show.
No, and I think it was really truthful because at the time when he started the documentary, he had been in contact with the family and they had kind of agreed to talk to him. And then when he got there and he had bought the house, they wouldn't talk to him. And they said it was because he had been in the house, but also they were in talks with movie studios and stuff for the rights to their story. So it lends more to that being the reason why, to me.
I think so too.
Yeah. So
I think so too.
Yeah.
So he says something was inside that house that had the ability to do things that I have never seen before. Things that others carrying the highest form of credibility couldn't explain either. There was something there that was very dark, yet highly intelligent and powerful. But he said it very Ferris Bueller's teacher. I struggled with even powering through this documentary because he's so thematic and dramatic and almost like listening to Ross Geller narrate a documentary. I was like, get the sentence out, my God. But in his documentary, Zak Bagans is racked and wrecked by Catholic guilt. He takes everything he saw while repossessing the house in Gary, Indiana, very personally. The building he bought sight unseen, which is just bananas in my mind, frankly. But I don't
he's
have.
got money, and
I don't have his kind of money. Yeah, I don't have his kind of money. The building he bought didn't just house any demons, but upper echelons of the hierarchy, he claims. It wreaked havoc with Bagans' crew, drove suicidal thoughts into an innocent bystander, which this was the most disturbing part of the documentary. A woman who had lived in the home. Yeah, a woman who had lived in the home 2 years prior to LaToya Amons and her mother and her children. They came back after Zak Bagans bought the home, and she brought her children with her. And one of her children was driven to suicidal thoughts after being in the home. And they had never lived there. Her mother had lived there when she was a child. And it was just one of those.
No. I think they did live there. And it was her brother.
It
was her brother that had lived in the basement and was killed while they.
Her brother had lived. There. Yes, her brother had been murdered. He had lived in the basement. Her brother had been murdered.
Not in the basement, but murdered while he was still living there. Right, and her daughter, like a couple weeks after visiting, I think it was 3 weeks later, had attempted suicide. She was not successful.
Yeah,
she did not complete, but
they exorcised her on the show. Like he recorded the exorcism with this priest Manigo. It was, I was texting Laura and I was like, oh my God, they're fucking exercising that daughter. Like I have not ever seen a Zak Bagans show or feature or whatever quite like this. I thought it was, it held my attention, and it's difficult for that man to do that with me because he's just so theatrical. I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. I'm sure he's a really stellar demonologist and paranormal investigator, and I think if I could go on a paranormal investigation with him where it was just like no cameras and he was like actually doing it, I think I would learn a bunch of stuff. But he's just so theatrical, and because he's one of the longest reigning paranormal reality show guys there is.
Yeah, I mean, he is super successful. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, for sure. So in addition to the woman who had lived there for a couple of years, where her daughter was driven to suicidal ideation and thoughts, one of his crew went a little loopy nut job. It's interesting to watch. On the one hand, you kind of feel for the guy. On the other hand, you're like, I think this is all a bunch of made up bullshit. It's really subjective, and I think that it has to do with the way it was filmed, the way it was shot, the way it was presented to the audience. That's all I'm going to say.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. So the property did take a major toll on Zak Bagans' health, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to cover this location in the show, because it's kind of a well-known story that this guy, who is one of the highest paid paranormal reality television stars, did actually come across his trademark hipster glasses because of a situation in a haunted house that he bought. So essentially, he gave an interview to Den of Geek, and they asked, how are your eyes? And he says, I still have the affliction. I still wear prism glasses 24/7. I mean, not when I'm sleeping, but it has not gone away. At this point, I have refused to do the double eye surgery because the doctor told me there is a risk of total blindness from doing that. Essentially, and I missed this last part of the documentary. So Laura, you said it. I missed the best part.
The entire house.
Yeah, okay.
And stays in the house, right?
Okay.
And he records himself, and then like I think during the night he gets like incredible headaches, and all of a sudden his vision is all fucked up and everything. And so it ends up that it did give him I don't remember the name of the
Diploia or diploia.
Yeah, but basically he sees double
vision
horizontally, and so he has to wear special glasses all the time. And to fix it, again, he would risk total blindness to fix it. So he just wears the glasses instead. And he still has it to this day, yes, I believe.
Yeah, he still has it to this day.
Right.
So it's a very, it's interesting. And like I said, anybody that is a fan of Ghost Adventures, that certainly is crushing on Zak Bagans, they're well aware of what happened to him. I think that everything that happened to the people that were in that home, from Captain Austin to the social worker Ms. Illick to Zak Bagans to, I mean, I don't believe in coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. And this location just has a little too much.
Well, and that I'll give you, because there is like, it seems like there's just constant bad things that happen to people during, when they're in there or directly after. There's a lot.
Yeah. I think, and I know you said when we were talking about the social worker, when she broke her ankle running in flip-flops, and then she broke whatever jet skiing, and then she... Yeah, that's kind of a lot like, that's like, don't do this, that, like, she made some poor choices, but at the same time, that's kind of like if it were to happen to you or me, we would be like, what did we do to bring this on us?
Agreed. And,
Yeah.
the captain said that he had some weird things happen to him afterwards.
Yeah.
The young girl, obviously. And then
Barry
his crew.
Taff. And then Barry Taff.
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Barry Taft,
Dr.
who
Barry
investigated it with Zach before he locked himself in there.
Yes.
He had gone and taken readings inside the house. And there were some unusually high readings.
There were. Yeah. At one point, Zach felt overcome with the emotion to attack Dr. Barry Taft. Right. Yeah.
Yep. And then shortly after going to the house, Dr. Taft's organs began to fail, and he was in the hospital for quite a while.
In tandem, not just one organ, like all of them.
Like all of them.
His prostate, his liver, his kidney, they all began to fail. And his doctors were perplexed as to why, as was he.
And that's also with Zach's eye condition too. They don't know what caused it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I asked everybody to put whatever sort of shield of protection down around them, because these entities are also known in this particular house, known to cause bad stuff to happen to anybody that might be discussing them, say as on a podcast, or to anybody that might be listening. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I love Laura and my whole family and her whole family and every single one of you and all of your families enough to not risk it. So if I say, hey, put down some, shields of protection because what we're talking about may affect you, there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think.
Right.
Yeah. So, what I did want to say about Dr. Barry Taft is that this didn't... It wasn't a situation where he could just get glasses and he would be okay. Moderately okay, like Zak Bagans. I did come across in my research of other stories that Dr. Barry Taft did become and stay very seriously ill, to the point where he had spent a lot of his money that he had made on various shows, certainly with Ghost Adventures, certainly with Ghost Hunters. Dr. Barry Taft is a well-known individual in the paranormal community. He spent a lot of his money on his medical bills because of what happened here at the Demon House. And he did start a GoFundMe. He ended up needing to start a GoFundMe to ask his fans and followers and readers for their help financially to help him with his medical bills. He did achieve his goal. Is the very last thing that I read in the last couple of weeks. He did achieve his monetary goal to get the kind of therapies and things like that he needed, but still kind of attributes it to this house.
To the house?
To the house, which he was involved in the San Pedro haunting that we covered not that long ago. And
right, I remember.
He is very, he is a parapsychologist, but leaning a little bit more on the skeptical bent. So, make of that.
I appreciate him.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the other explanation that a lot of people are giving?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Okay. I don't know how to word it though, because I don't necessarily fall into this. So I'm like,
do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can do that. All right.
Okay.
So the other explanation that a lot of people talk about with the home is that when Zak Bagans first bought it, he did get a home inspection.
Yes.
And the home inspection did say that there was black mold in the house.
Yes.
Now, they said it wasn't necessarily circulating in the air, but it was there. And there was a slight CO2 leak coming from the furnace. So, the most common symptoms of CO poisoning are headache, dizziness, weakness, upset stomach, vomiting, chest pain, and confusion. They're flu-like symptoms, and if you breathe a lot of it, it can make you pass out, it can kill you,
Yeah.
and a lot of people do die, and it does lead to permanent brain damage. Now, Zak Bagans did close himself into the house and board it up, so there's no ventilation. Okay.
So if we were
I mean, a
wondering
lot
why
of
he's
people
brain
will
dead,
say,
now we know.
right, a lot of people will say that that's why everyone got so sick in the house.
Right. Right.
Right. So, that is, as far as a skeptic's take on it, and what I researched, that's what they're saying, is
Yeah.
that the home was just basically poison itself. So,
Yeah, and is it a poison that is affecting everybody, or is it a more sinister demonic presence? Laura, what is your take? I know what my take is, and everybody knows what my take is.
yeah, I know what your take is. With this, I have gone back and forth because the documentary is really interesting, and so is the story.
It is.
And the fact that the person who convinces me the most is the first CPS officer.
Oh, Valerie Washington, yes. Because he interviews her later, years after, right?
Right.
Right.
And this fucked her up so bad. She moved out away from Gary. She even talks about it in the documentary. She went to therapy. She had traumatic issues from seeing what she saw that really stayed with her. So to me, her response seems genuine and exactly what would happen if you did see shit like this, right? Like, you would get the fuck out of Dodge, one, and then two, be like, I need to talk to somebody about this. Like, you know what I mean? That would, and I think she even changed professions. She couldn't do what she did anymore because it was too traumatic.
Well, and let's talk about that for just a tiny second. Like, it as a social worker, and she mentioned, which was really hard for me to listen to, she mentioned
It is hard.
about the different cases that she had witnessed. Child murder, children being burned, children being beaten, stabbed. Like, she had witnessed the worst of the worst child abuse claims. But this case ruined her. Essentially, wrecked her. Not ruined her, but they wrecked her significantly. So it begs the question, I guess, or, let's introduce the conversation. If you're a social worker and you know the horrible capabilities of humans to children, but then you're introduced to a paranormal aspect of it,
Right.
and there might be a parent that is a good parent, but then there's this paranormal bent.
And you see a kid walk up a wall backwards and flip over and shit, stuff that you can't explain. And that just totally fucks you up. And you know, she was religious. She does say, when she believed in the devil and stuff before this, but never had she ever obviously expected to witness anything like that. So after seeing all this other horrible shit, she was like, deuces, I'm done. And I don't blame her at all.
I don't either. I don't either.
And she was doing God's work already, fighting a
exactly.
good fight, being an advocate for children that couldn't advocate for themselves. So,
what could that possibly do to your level of thinking when you see all of this stuff, and then you have this other stuff coming in that has a different
Now you have a completely different belief system as well, right?
Yes,
Like, so
exactly.
maybe
Yeah.
she's thinking it's demons everywhere. You know what I mean? I get it. Like,
It's hard.
so
I can't
yeah,
even
I find,
imagine.
and again, I find her the most compelling
Me
because
too.
I feel her that she's completely relatable. She seems very honest. She's not even trying to make. She's not definitely not making any money on it. She's not even involved. She's not in Gary. She's not. Like,
And these are other
is trying to move on with her life in a real way, and doesn't have anything to do with it.
Right. And then that's the other thing too, is that there are people, medical professionals, the nurses, the doctors, her, the woman who had to replace her at DCS, the other social worker.
Right.
Who else? Priests. There's a number of people in careers that had a lot to lose.
Right. Right.
That wrote reports on this. I'm sorry. I'm not willing to give up my career on if I believe something is a bunch of fucking bullshit. Malarkey.
100%.
Hooey. I'm not going to do that. These people stayed the course, and they
and 10 years later they stick to the
story.
story.
Yeah.
So I mean, now we're talking like it's 10 years later. I don't remember when his documentary was done. I know it was.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but still, you know what I mean? They nobody's changing their story here. So.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a very compelling,
very
case.
Interesting case.
It's a very interesting case. Yeah. I definitely recommend you guys watch the documentary, The Demon House, that Zak Bagans did. His narration isn't great, but you know what? His storytelling is. So
yeah, and it's on Discovery Plus if you guys are looking for it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So what do you think, Laura? Do you think it was real, or what do you think? You're the skeptic. You know what I think. I buy it. I'm here for
I'm
it.
not. I'm kind of on the fence. And like I said, I think there was some shit that happened that's pretty hard to explain in the presence of multiple people. So that definitely gives it more credence. But I also think that the science behind it, the CO2, you know what I mean? There can be for a lot of it, you can have a different explanation. So you can explain away quite a bit. But you can't explain away everything.
Yes. I would say, I would correct you in saying you can't explain away quite a bit, but a fair amount.
Yeah. I mean, if you're it's skeptical, there's, you can find stuff, but
yeah.
But even
but we'll never know
of
because
how that kid did that. I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know. That gets me.
Pretty crazy.
That gets me. That's the one thing that gets me. But we will never know because Zak Bagans had it torn down. And what he has kept in his haunted museum in Las Vegas is not really, I don't think, enough to really find out the truth of it. But, I like it. And this actually kind of made me respect Zak Bagans just a skosh more. So,
good job, Zak.
Good job, Zak. That's all I have. Is that all you have?
That's all I got.
Okay, well then let's do what we do. Hang on, because I'm fucked up. This episode, we have no strange history, nothing like that. But Laura, I think you might be able to tell them where they can follow us. Let's see.
Sure. You guys can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at HOH Podcast. And you can find us on the TikTok at HOH Podcast, at HOH Carrie, and at HOH Co-host Laura.
Yay! All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This was a long episode. We are closing in on 1 hour of the second half of the show. So hope you guys are going to be doing road tripping like I am this weekend. And I certainly hope that all of you stay safe out there because as fucking always, and never more important than it is this episode, stay safe out there because you never know who
or which demon
is listening. God, Laura. Bye, guys. We love you. Be safe.
See ya.